All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Thursday, July 29th. So we're making our way through earnings season, and of course, Amazon reported after hours here and is down pretty decently. So that kind of takes precedence, I guess, over anything else that I was going to say tonight. But yeah, you got a pretty steep move down. Amazon is one of those companies that, I'll show you my earnings trade, which is a zero. But let me go over to our earnings channel. But this is what I had to say, and this is why I think it's very important to look at the previous history. Right, and if you look at the last 10 quarters for Amazon, they're not a stellar performer. So again, always looking at this right column. Not so much what they achieve, sales, revenue, but the price action, because the price action is really, at the end of the day, is going to be the one that that rewards us or not rewards us. So yeah, so that is a key metric that I tend to look at is just basically what the company does, right? We talked about this earlier in the week. I know I didn't have a video last night, but we talked about Google, for example, and what was another one that reported? Snap was another one too. There's definitely something. Servicenow is another one too that we talked a little bit about yesterday too. But if you look at these, right? So just to provide some context in terms of what I'm saying, but you could see Google, look at the right, They have a nice recipe. The last 4 quarters they've beaten. Servicenow is the one that I always bring out, even though the last period was one where it fell 9%, 9% last quarter. So it's not, of course, 100%, but when you have something like this for Servicenow, I will always kind of have more skin in the game when you've got earnings reports that are like this. Someone just asked me too. They're like, well, "What is this number from?" It's from the previous close. So if it's what where the company closed, the day of prior to when they reported earnings. So anyway, so that always has a little, gauges, whether or not it goes into my overall thinking, about how I want to position. And you could see, just Amazon just does not have a great history on earnings day. So, part of that is, I guess, what I believe goes into this, or the thinking behind it, is that management is setting the tone in terms of expectations, right? And they're doing that on a quarter-to-quarter basis. So, I think the management teams who know how to play the game set the expectations at a reasonable level where they can kind of jump over it for the next time. And then when they go to set earnings expectations for the next quarter, they don't do it very high, so that it's a reasonable, right? So what's the saying that I'm thinking of? They underpromise and overdeliver. Right, I think there's certain management teams that know how to do that. All right, so normally I would say I would be looking for a level to trade off of, but I don't think we really have one yet. There's a lot of these red lines again. So this is good to go over in this video because this really comes into play a lot. But those red lines that you see, not just the big red price action to the downside, but the horizontal red lines, those are virgin point of controls. You hear me talk about this just about in every one of these videos, but it is where a lot of buyers and sellers have previously met up. So notice how many there are in a line. So that's why I don't know. We've kind of gone through this one very quickly. I'm on the 1 hour time frame, by the way, so you could see these. And by the way, when I'm on the 1 hour time frame, every one of these value areas is for the week. We get a new value area every week when you're on the 1 hour time frame. So you can see we're kind of skipping down here. It's like skipping stones a little bit on it. There's another one down here. So we just really don't know yet. We're down at 346 here. And also you could look at these on the 5 minute time frame. You're going to see, and it takes Thinkorswim a second here to crunch the data, but you're going to see we've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4 of these things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but you have more down here. You've got one, you got three more. So that's why it's a little bit uncertain. So that's why I'm not buying anything here after the after hours. I got to see. There's another one down there too. So just kind of letting it play out for now. I did trade. So we'll go through a couple names that reported earnings. Twilio. We were going over this one, but Twilio different. Just had 1 hour of epoch. And again, Twilio, their numbers were pretty good. I'll bring their numbers up. But again, this is another one that it's down even though they had good earnings, and it just look at the performance, right? So again, it's one of those names. Now it's beaten earnings like this one. It went up 39%. It really shocked everybody. But I'm looking at 10 quarters here, and there's 8 of them that went down. So it follows the recipe of this type of thing. So that's that one is down, and I did trade some here in after hours because I look at so when we go to the 1 hour, this thing actually held 378, and this thing closed at 392 today. So I traded that one in the after hours, made a little bit of money, which should make up for my I'm sorry, I'm bouncing back and forth. Sorry, there's a lot of things to talk about today. Let me gather my thoughts here just for a second. Let me go back to this earnings channel. But yeah, here's what I said. So I will lose money on Amazon because I did put on a small earnings trade. So again, these earnings trades are always binary, but what I said here. So I'll lose $380. Not really a big deal. But I said it has only gone up 3 of the last 10 quarters, so I stick with the trends. That said, I want to have some skin in the game. Well, there goes the skin. That's gone. So, again, you kind of, it helps, looking at these trends to basically say how much money do I want to risk, if any. So, I do put, I do trade, so... But yeah, the other thing is I think they're setting the bar for the new CEO pretty low. All right, a couple other names that reported that I thought were interesting. EW I think may have given back the gains, but they had good numbers. They ran into to the report. Team, so again, not all bad here. Team is up to 300, up 40 points. So nice. Look at the consolidation here. Right, Team was not one that I went over. Because again, I don't like to put on a lot of risk for these names. But this is another one that I wouldn't have played this one because it's too inconsistent. I like to see names that are really have a good history. Upwork, I think, is down a little bit, even though that they beat. You could see their earnings is all, they had a couple quarters in here where they really outperformed pretty well. But I wouldn't be surprised if they flip around and go up by tomorrow morning, but we'll see what else is moving here in the after hours. But of course, like Amazon is going to be, it's a big portion of the indices. I also kind of find it interesting that let's see if I've got I don't have the end of day movers yet. But I also find it interesting that Amazon was the last one to report. Google came out, good earnings. Microsoft were pretty good. Apple had reported. Good numbers as well. So these names made it. Facebook, good numbers, but they said that they brought their guidance down a little bit. So it's kind of interesting that Amazon reports last, and this is the results that they come out with. So again, earnings season, very very tricky. I dislike earnings season. I think it's a very difficult time to try to swing trade. The way it's been kind of going for me this week is. Some wins and some losses this week. P&L will probably be, I don't know. We'll see where I might be down slightly for the week, but I should be up for the month because we got one more trading day of the year. But so we'll see how that goes. Tomorrow is the 30th of the month, and that's the last trading day. But a lot of rotations again. And if you look at today's performers, by the way, one thing that stood out to me was there just wasn't a lot of movement today past the open in the indices. The Qs were up 34 basis points. They outperformed, but nothing really out of the S&P and the Dow. Small caps, same thing. They were up 0.75%, but all that move happened in the overnight market, right, and pre-market. TLT, not much going on there. VIX, not going on much there. What did outperform very nicely was metals and mining, as well as home builders. So two different groups, which again, like I think this is good. It's good to see more areas of the market outperform. This is XME, which has seen some call buying. Saw some call buying yesterday, I believe, and a little bit today. So, you look at your steel ETF, that's a group that we've talked about a couple times this week. New car calls and STLD calls. I think I feel like even though I didn't do a video yesterday, which was Wednesday, I believe I talked about that in Tuesday's video, how we saw some repeat call buying in Nucor and a nice looking trade in STLD. So, very nice. But again, like I feel like my timing's been a little bit off. I put on a trade in RS earlier in the week, and I decided I took off some risk going into the Fed meeting, and I'm like, son of a gun, this thing was up 3.5% today. I like this name. Alcoa has been doing very well. FCX, just to look at a few names in the space. Copper I think was up again today. After a little bit of digestion. And then the other group that's been impressive is the home builders. Remember, the home builders, ITB, was your best performing sector last week, right? This had a monster move today, up 3.6%. And, I'm long Lennar in the TTG Trend Portfolio. This name had a great day today, up 5.5%. Remember, I got long right after earnings, I think right in here. They had good numbers and have been digesting, kind of gave some back here, but really nice move back up for Lennar. And I think the whole group looks pretty decent. Here's DHI, which was up 4.6% for the day. Toll Brothers, also a strong day. So those were your two really good areas. I also was watching some of the chemical companies. This is a group that I've had my eye on. They were very strong going back a few months ago for March and April, and then gave some, then kind of digested for a while. But look at them, OLN just reported, but this is one of my favorite chemical names. Dow, to a lesser extent, you can see I just drew that trend line in there today. That's moving above. Also a name that I've been watching. Deere got to the top of value. I did not take a target in this trade. I think it got to a high of close to 362 today. So I'm kind of held off taking a target. I'm looking at that VPOC up there at 371. A couple other things that I traded today. I tried some snow today. Thought maybe this could finally get over this kind of 368, 370 level. Nope. Actually finished down on the day. Saw some call buying in this one. I was able to kind of, I went in twice on my entry price, so I was able to take a target, and I have some calls, that expire next week, which again, short-term calls always a risky endeavor, so, we'll see how that pans out. But it's close. It's close to breaking higher. I thought it was worth a shot. All right, so that is snow. Stock of the day, probably, there's a couple of them, and so as we go over Amazon and talk about the negatives, look at what AMD has been doing since earnings. This thing topped out at 105. A lot of aggressive call buying in there, like momentum call buying. That hit, like I said, almost 106 today. A couple other names that were strong that I thought were interesting was Wingstop. Just kind of follows the trend in some of these casual dining restaurant places. So Wingstop had a big move. ALGN had a real nice move on earnings. Align Technology. TPX was another one that had a monster move, up 15%. So again, you kind of go through some of these groups, and I know the Qs are getting hit here on Amazon, but this is kind of what happens during earnings season. You're going to have some winners and some losers, and we kind of go on from there. One of the things that I wanted to talk about too is this RSP ETF. This is the equally weighted S&P. So it's the same thing as the S&P 500, right? The SPX, except they're taking the same components, same 500 names, instead of market cap weighting them, which skews the largest companies to have the largest weights, the RSP is equally weighting the same names. Because this has been a question about market breadth, right? I keep hearing this stuff on Twitter about how February is where the market made its highs. I strongly disagree with that. You could see here that the I mean, you can, I guess, pick what indices that you want to talk about and formulate some type of crazy opinion off of that. But the market and what we're most benchmarked to is to the S&P 500. So I don't agree with trying to find for people who have been wrong for months, trying to tell people that the market peaked in February is just really a lot of a really bad take, in my opinion. You could find something that's going to fit your narrative. You could say that the small caps, but the small caps are not the overall market either. Yes, the small caps hit a high in March, but that's not really unless you're a small cap growth manager, that's not your benchmark, right? The majority of people's benchmark is the S&P, and that did not hit a high in February. So, I would have to say shame on people for trying to say that if they haven't been long the market for the last few months, to try to put some narrative that February or March is where we peaked is absolutely nonsense. You could look at RSP. So RSP again kind of takes takes my breath away. Takes the bad breath argument out of the equation, because we just made a new high today. So please, if you hear that, tell them to if you hear somebody say that the market peaked in February, you're welcome to give them a slap across the face to knock the nonsense out of them. And the Qs, right? I also heard about that months ago too, about how the Qs looked horrible. Right. Well, again, they're going to be down a little bit, but look at what they've done all year long. These things are up, very, very nicely year to date. So, put the market in context. Has it been an easy market to trade this year? No, it hasn't. It's been a lot different than last year. There's been a lot of rotations going on. There's been some different areas of the market. We've had value cyclical rallies. We've had rotations out of growth, rotations back into growth. This year has been about how nimble you could be and how less stubborn. Being anchored to views has not worked this year. And I tell you, when I grew up, when I was younger, and I get this from my family. I inherited from this family, but I come from a very family that's very stubborn. So stubbornness is the worst thing that you could have in trading, right? And I've learned that once you learn what your market weaknesses are, the quicker that you can, it's like step one. Denial, right? Or step two is like acceptance. I don't know, somewhere along the 7 steps or whatever is acceptance. So if you could accept, that you may have some weaknesses in terms of, like, mine is stubbornness. That is not one for trading, and it took me a while. It took me a couple years to kind of get over being stubborn and not selling losers, and now I'm out of losers so quick. Sometimes I get out of things too quickly. All right, so we'll kind of wrap this up here. But those were your areas that outperformed. The semis had some strength to them too. Still not sure what to think about this group. I went over the AMD chart, but this group has been tricky too. Every time I think this group is going to break out, it kind of falls back a little bit because the semis are one of those groups that I love to trade, but I've kind of stopped doing that as much because I got caught in a couple trades within the semiconductor group that and that's a situation, right? If a couple groups, if you're not timing them well, right, and they become a little bit too tricky, there's plenty of other stocks to trade. There's plenty of other things. If you can't make certain trades work or certain areas of the market work for you, then you got to move on, right, and come back to it. If it, once it sets up a little bit better, right? Wait for your pitch, right? I'm saying a lot of things that you hear, a lot in trading context is that waiting for your pitch, right? Nobody has a gun to your head and forces you to trade every day. That's the advantage that you have over hedge funds, is that you can kind of just sit back, keep as much of a cash balance that you like, and kind of go from there. A couple other stocks too that I thought were interesting today was INMD. Every dip seems to be getting bought in this name. Shallow dips, a little bit of consolidation, and the thing's back out to new highs. I didn't even realize that this name reported earnings the other day, and it didn't have much reaction.